Kata on opening the sutra.
I have to say, I feel like this staff and I, this coincidence, we've been reunited. I've never felt that with any other staff before, but this one, it's like, okay, haven't seen you for a while. It's actually really fun in Tokusan because the eye of Doan is upon you. Double Dharma eye. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, I am sort of still a little giddy and whatever. I was on the Zoom with my Dharma Biddy fellow teachers, and one of them said to me, so are you going on something like a honeymoon? I mean, it's kind of like a marriage. What are you going to do? And I was like, no, I'm going to lead a retreat. No rest for the weary, right? And actually it feels more like not so much a marriage as like a birth. So I'm having this weird, like two things are happening at once where I feel like I'm like totally new, I have no idea what's going on, and like, well, wait a minute, I really should know what's going on by now. So we'll see what happens. Also, just thank you to the Sangha for making this Inkashome such an incredible, it was just such a beautiful event. There was so much feeling of togetherness, and I think we've all just worked so diligently to try to get along with each other, right? And to try to make this temple a shining light on the hill, right? And it is that. And, well done team, really well done team. And, we have so many different personalities and so many different capacities and all of the things. And somehow we're all like tumbling around and really polishing each other. It's quite beautiful. I love all the different types of bodhisattvas we have in this Sangha. It's really quite a, actually they say, like, how do you know the teacher, if the teacher's any good? You look at the students. And if they're like fully themselves and enjoying their practice, then the teacher's good. Right? What's going on there? What? You know, when I watch the news and I see those news anchors and they've got that little clip there, I am like so jealous. Like every time I'm like, if Rosh is in the room, I'll turn to him and say, yeah, that's what I want right there. Why can't I have that? Okay. We do have a talk that we have to get to, and I can't find it. So. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm looking at my notes, and the first thing that's jumping out at me is noble silence among noble friends. This is the whole of the path that we're on in this session, is it not? Just to appreciate that we have session to just integrate all of the things that are going on and just to kind of return to the purity of our own hearts. I would say too that so much of the success of the Inka Shome comes from the fact that we are doing session every month. And that we are really grounding ourselves in this noble friendship, in noble silence. And the activity is coming out of that direct experience. Because it's in the noble silence that we actually get to contact our true nature. This true nature that is no nature, right? That is the perfect union of absolute and relative. That's, well, the koan that we're going to work on has a lot to say about that, or very few things to say, depending on how you want to look at it. So we are in the Blue Cliff record. Rosh has already gone through many of the cases, and now I'm going to go through them. And we're on case 2. And this has a very different flavor from the Muman Khan. And I wanted to just give you a little taste of the flavor of how this particular koan collection works. The first thing is that there's so much more, like, so many more words. This commentary on the case, this commentary on the verse, but there's also pointers, and inside the verse, there's commentary on each of the lines. So there's a lot of Dharma words happening here. And I'm just going to read out the pointer to you so you can get a feeling for, like, what is this book like, right? The second case, the ultimate path is without difficulty. Heaven and earth are narrow. Sun, moon, and stars all at once go dark. So we're in another world of perception, are we not? We're in the upside down world. We're turning our dualistic perception on its head. Even if blows of the staff fall like rain and shouts roll like thunder, you still haven't lived up to the task of the fundamental vehicle of transcendence. So even though the name of this case is The Ultimate Path is Without Difficulty, right? How many blows of the staff have you had from your own heart-mind this session? Plenty, right? How many blows of the staff of the hindrances in your own heart and mind have you had this session? Yeah, they are legion, right? They just keep coming until they don't. Shouts roll like thunder. Still, you haven't lived up to the task of the fundamental vehicle of transcendence. So even though you can endure all of the blows of craziness of your own mind and sit in stillness and tolerate yourself, sadly, that isn't enough, right? There's something far, far more healing, ultimately healing, supremely healing, that we must encounter in our Zen practice. And all of us are, we've got our arrow that we've shot, and that's the bullseye for us. What is this ultimate healing in the midst of this first noble truth of suffering? Where is the end of suffering? Where is the end of this suffering? Right in the middle of the blows. Even the Buddhas of the 3 times can only know it for themselves. This is such a sad state of affairs, right? Because no matter how evolved and how attained another person is, they can't give you their attainment, right? We all have to do it ourselves. We all have to find that supreme way of ultimate healing ourselves. The successive generations of patriarchs have not been able to bring it up in its entirety. So no matter what rank or state or stage that we attain in our practice, there's always another vista. There's always more. This opening into our Buddha nature, into our true nature, is forevermore ongoing. And Dosha very, very eloquently pointed that out in the service when he said something like, well, now that you've attained the mark, may you shed the mark, right? And I'm just thinking to myself, God, can't I just hang out there for like half a second? At least until the end of the ceremony? Alas. Okay, blah, blah, blah. The treasury of teachings of the whole age cannot explain it thoroughly, right? Because it can't be explained in words. It has to be directly experienced in your own heart, in your own body. Clear-eyed, patched-robed monks cannot save themselves completely. Isn't this interesting? There's always that little bit of sand in the swimsuit, right? No matter what. And you know, this is a really good thing, actually. And the more that you move along in your training, you really appreciate that sand in the swimsuit, because that is what calls you back to your bodhisattva vow over and over and over again. When you get here, how will you ask for more instructions? So you can't save yourself completely. How will you ask for more instruction? To say the word Buddha is trailing mud and dripping water. Dido used to love that phrase, trailing mud and dripping water. Sometimes, and there's a mud ball coming at you. Remember that? Mud balls? We had plenty of mud balls, did we not? To say the word Chan is a face full of shame, right? Because again, just trying to use the words to express something that can't be expressed in words. Even though I'm sitting here and my lips are moving back and forth and in and out in my tongue, it is kind of embarrassing, actually, to do that. But, you know, they say that human Buddhas have words to teach with. That's what we've got. So you got to be able to use them. You know, my favorite story about in those other realms, I've told this story so many times. Stop me if I've told everybody in the room. So in this other realm, there's this tree that's got all these flowers on it and all this fragrance. And all the bodhisattvas have to do is line the people up, and then one by one just sit them under the tree. And just by sitting under the tree and experiencing the fragrance, they come to full and complete awakening, full and complete Buddhahood. So it's like, next, next, next. So yeah, I've tried that with fragrance so far, and it doesn't seem to really work. Okay. Superior people who have studied for a long time do not wait for it to be said. Do not wait for it to be said, because they're tracking this inexpressible, and they recognize it in themselves, and they recognize it in others. However, latecomer beginners feeling a little guilty? Simply must investigate and apprehend it. So of course that's all of us, you know, this investigation, right? And it's a joyful investigation. Is it not? Ish? Kind of joyful? Thank you. Okay. So, there's a very famous poem in Zen. It's Chinese. It's called the Faith in Mind poem. And it goes, the supreme way is not difficult. Just avoid picking and choosing. Just don't love or hate, and you will be lucid and clear. Now that needs a lot of unpacking, does it not? We're going to get there. This is sort of the preamble because you need to know a little bit of this to understand the case, okay? So we're going to go into the case now. Chow Chow, teaching the assembly, said, "The ultimate path is what is without difficulty. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to use this one, actually. You know, it's very interesting because we're working with so many different translations. And this Cleary translation is one of the first translations. I think it was two brothers, actually. They were both at Harvard, and they did like all these huge amount of translations of especially Zen Buddhist texts. But I'm going to use a different translation because I think it's a little bit clearer. Chow Chow instructed his assembly, "The supreme way is not difficult. It simply refrains from picking and choosing. As soon as these words are spoken, you might judge that this is picking and choosing, or that it's clear. I don't dwell in clarity." Can you stand by this and give a response? Can you stand by this and give a response? A monk stepped forward and asked, "Well, if you don't dwell in clarity, what do you stand by? If you're not teaching clarity, what do you stand by? Who do you think you are, being a big old Zen master?" And Chow Chow said, "I don't know that either." So now the monk's really on their high horse. If you don't know, why do you say you don't dwell in clarity if you don't know what's going on? And Chow Chow says, "It's enough to ask your question. Make your bows, step back," and I'm adding, head back to the Zendo, right? For some more sitting. So immediately you can just feel that this monk is a little bit sassy, right? The monk is really going for it. And Chow Chow's rising to the occasion. So let's look at it just a little bit. The supreme way is not difficult. So this is this line from this Faith in Mind poem that I just read. Now, it's obvious that our life is the first noble truth, is it not? I mean, my poor aunt, it's like she's in this total Jobian moment. Like her husband has all of these comorbidities, and he's like fell and he broke his leg in 2 places, and then he got pneumonia, and the dog has cancer, and her son lost his job, and they sold their house, and she's trying to pack up and take care of the dog and take care of her husband and take care of her son. I mean, it's really like she is in it, okay? And I know that every one of us in this room can tell some version of that story, right? So there's no lack of difficulty in our life. Yet, the statement is the supreme way is not difficult. So right there, what does this mean? How do I experience not difficult in the midst of this very challenging, hard to get through the day human life? Hopefully, while we're in sesshin, and you're going through all of the wax and all of the, from the hindrances and all of that, that you're getting a little bit of a taste of what that not difficult feels like in the midst of this human moment that we're in. This is actually what we're practicing. We are practicing as bodhisattvas to totally merge with this not difficult in the midst of fill in the blank. And each one of us can tell a story about being in sesshin and perhaps, picking up a fork or taking a step, putting water on your face. I mean, there's an infinite amount of instances where you're like, wow, something miraculous and something that I don't quite understand, but has so much, you can't even say what it is, but you know that it's good and it's right and it's true and it's, dare I say, transcendent. And we all have these experiences. And we're training ourselves how to live as a bodhisattva, that this is sort of home base for us. We know what the not difficulty is in the midst of the difficult. We know how to actualize the supreme way is not difficult. Not by denying the difficulty, but seeing into the direct nature, what is actually happening right now. Two arrows meeting in midair, the relative and the absolute, boom. That's our life. And for most of us, we have to really get comfortable and get familiar with the absolute part. We're pretty good with the relative, we can get from A to B, right? But that kind of no boundary, that transcendence, the eternal, the unspeakable, yet to always our sanctuary. It's very hard to put words on it, right? But you know it, you feel it. Okay, so the supreme way is not difficult. It simply refrains from picking and choosing. So interestingly enough, this teacher is saying, if you want to know what not difficult is in the supreme way, in the bodhisattvic way, refrain from picking and choosing. But as soon as you hear those words, you think, oh, I better not prefer anything at all. Yes and no, right? Yes and no. Those two arrows meeting in midair, they're always together. I think what's normally, when we're in our samsaric perception, ego mind, our ordinary everyday mind, the picking and choosing feels like it's overwhelming the boundless, right? It feels like that, but it's actually not true. The boundless is arising in and as the picking and choosing, right? The freedom is inside. You can't escape the freedom, right? You can't escape the freedom. So this refraining from picking and choosing means that the absolute is co-arising with the relative, but it's not overwhelmed and circumscribed and defined by the absolute, by the relative. Now, this is very abstract, what I'm saying, but I think you can kind of go there. It's as simple as this. This is a perfect expression of refraining from picking and choosing. The hand decided to go up. Now, how is that true? This is very interesting. And if you're not kind of geeking out on that, it's going to be hard to keep going on your Zen trajectory, your Zen journey, right? Because it's that subtle. It's that mysterious. And it's that all-pervading, right? Now, going back to our story. So the master says, as soon as these words are spoken, so he's talking to his students, you might judge that this is picking and choosing. Well, any intelligent person would say that. Hey, you chose to lift your hand up there. That's totally picking and choosing, right? Or that it's clear. Oh, well, yes. Refraining from picking and choosing is a wonderful expression of the true Dharma. Someone with a true Dharma eye really gets it, right? Or what a clear expression of the Dharma that is, right? Then Chow Chow comes in with like the best line ever. I don't dwell in clarity, right? Just completely flips that over on its head, right? Because he doesn't want us to stick anywhere. And not dwelling in clarity is not separate from dwelling in clarity. That makes no sense. But it is so true, right? So when you are a muddled mess, when you are just like yanked around right, left, and center by your hindrances, on the one hand, you're practicing renunciation, which is like, cut that out, right? That is one way to practice the Dharma. Another way to practice the Dharma is directly in the midst of that hindrance to make full contact with no hindrance. There, but not there, right? Impossible to do that work without sesshin, without zazen, without sitting and getting so intimate and so quiet and so attuned to the truth of what's happening. And, it really isn't that hard to do. I mean, pretty much so as soon as you sit on the cushion, it's happening, even before you sit on the cushion, it's happening, but especially when you're on the cushion, it's like all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, they perk up their little ears and their eyes, and they go, oh, there's a Bodhisattva, let's go help. And they all rush in, right? Not to mention your own Buddha nature rushing up, right? This is not hard. You just have to be quiet, and you have to trust. You have to trust your Buddha nature. And unlike when we're working in the renunciation side, where you kind of start working with the antidotes to your hindrances, here, what do we say? How do we follow the directions? See it, acknowledge it, let it go, let it be, right? And what is holding all of that? See it, acknowledge it, let it be. Where does that arise from? This is what we're practicing. The utter and complete mystery of that. So, the monk didn't get any of that. He thought, back up. So anyway, after he said, I don't dwell in clarity, then the master says, can you stand by this and give me a response? So he wants his students to demonstrate, oh, I don't dwell in clarity. What is that? Show me you're not dwelling in clarity right now, right? And then the monk did like kind of a belly flop. Because instead of trusting themselves, instead of going to the all-pervading Buddha nature that's right here, right now, that requires no intellectual fancy footwork, he went into the intellectual fancy footwork. Well, if you don't dwell in clarity, what do you stand by? Right? He gave him the big challenge. And of course, you can feel, vaguely interesting, but something about the heart and the connection was lost. He lost connection with his teacher. Probably because he was a little scared. Probably because he felt a little bit inadequate. How much better it would have said, I'm not really getting it. I don't understand what you're asking. I really feel inadequate. Then the connection is alive, right? And honesty is arising. So the monk had to, again, just demonstrate awakened life. What do you stand by? Asked the student. I don't know that either. Right? So this not knowing, most intimate, right? Each one of us is feeling our way into what is this life lived, not knowing, in the total trust of the mystery of this moment that we're in. And what happens when we really trust that? What happens to our heart? Right? And then that whippersnapper monk really, again, missed it. If you don't know, why do you say you dwell in clarity? What are you talking about? You don't know what's going on. And then by that time, I think Chaja was like, okay, this guy's like really afraid to be together, afraid of themselves, afraid of their life, afraid of their love. So what do you do with such a student? Get thee back to the Zendo. More sitting, more practice, more steeping. So that's what happened to that monk. He went back to the Zendo. And probably another student came before Chaja. And I thought, since we began with the opening of the Faith in Mind poem, we could end with the final lines of the Faith in Mind poem. Emptiness here, emptiness there, but the infinite universe stands always before your eyes. The infinite universe is right here. Not a hair's breadth of separation for any of us. We just have to get used to it. Infinitely large and infinitely small, no difference. Roshi and I shared that cup of one taste. That's what that's talking about. Infinitely large and infinitely small, no difference. For definitions have vanished, and no boundaries are seen. So too with being and non-being. Don't waste time in doubts and arguments that have nothing to do with this, like that monk in the case. One thing, all things, move among and intermingle without distinction. To live in this realization is to be without anxiety about non-perfection. Let me repeat that. Without anxiety about non-perfection, right? We can all just let our shoulders down and breathe and enjoy the perfection of this moment, especially in the sanctuary of Sesshin. This is like a really safe, deliberate container, right? It's very interesting. My Roxu, sorry. Okay. Well, I'm trying to read it. I didn't practice this before I did it. Oh. Okay, ready? This is what it says, right? Okay, not falling, not evading, two faces of the same die. Now, when you hear that, you hear, oh, one thing's many things, all one, right? Not evading, not falling, 1,000 mistakes, 10,000 mistakes, right? Can you feel the liberation of that? To live in this realization is to be without anxiety about non-perfection. To live in this faith is the road to non-duality, because the non-dual is one with the trusting mind. The non-dual is one with the trusting mind, far beyond this and that, far beyond being strangled by these hindrances that are all made up anyway, right? Words, the way is beyond language, for in it there is no yesterday, no tomorrow, and no today. Right? So the eternal now. And that's what we're practicing. And we can totally trust that. And we can have fun with it, right? We can really enjoy that. And most importantly, constantly giving it away to each other. And that's what we're doing here. And it's really nice. Thank you.
Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless.